May's sprint review runs 45 minutes every fortnight. The demos are smooth, the features work. The team has practiced the walkthrough. Stakeholders attend. They ask a few clarifying questions, they nod at the right moments, and they leave. And at the next sprint planning session, May opens the review notes to inform the backlog. The review notes are almost always empty, not because nobody had thoughts. In the session, stakeholders raised 3 concerns, identified 2 patterns across the sprint, and hinted at a shift in priorities that May noticed but nobody formally named. By the time the session ended, none of those things had been captured, owned, or decided. They happened. Then they evaporated. A great demo is not the same as a useful review. A demo shows what was built. A review decides what to do next. Most teams have perfected the first and never designed the second. The sprint review has a structural problem that almost nobody names because the session feels productive, while it is happening. What actually occurs in most sprint reviews is one thing: observation. The team shows what they built, stakeholders observe it, questions are asked, answers are given. And then the session ends, having gone no further than the surface of what was seen. There are 3 things a review session needs to do. First, surface observations. What happened, what was seen, what was noticed. Second, generate meaning. What do these observations tell us about the product, the team, the direction? Third, produce decisions. What are we going to do differently as a result? Most sprint reviews do the first layer thoroughly. They occasionally reach the second. They almost never complete the third. And because there is no structure enforcing the sequence, the session drifts from observation to casual discussion to the next calendar event. May has run 43 sprint reviews. She is skilled, prepared, and genuinely committed to making them useful. She has tried longer time boxes, shorter ones, different formats, standing demos, seated demos, remote demos. Nothing produces the decision quality she needs, because the format has never been the problem, the sequence has. Observations without interpretation are just data. Interpretation without decision is just conversation. Decision without action is just theatre. What? So what? Now. What gives all 3 layers a structure and enforces the sequence that makes each one possible. What, so what, now what, W3, is a liberating structure developed by Henry Lipmanowit and Keith McCandless that imposes a strict 3-layer sequence on any debrief or review conversation. The structure is simple. Layer 1 is what? 5 minutes of pure observation. What happened? What did we see? What data is in front of us? No interpretation allowed at this layer. Only facts and observations. Layer 2 is so what? 7 minutes of interpretation. What patterns emerge from those observations? What does this tell us about the product direction, the team's capacity, the stakeholder priorities? This is where meaning is made, but only from the raw material of Layer 1. You cannot interpret what you have not first observed. Layer 3 is now what? 8 minutes of decision. Given what we observed and what it means, what are we going to do? Who owns it? By when? This layer produces the only outputs that matter in a sprint review: specific decisions with owners and dates. Observations first. Interpretations second. Decisions third. The sequence is not a preference. It is a structural requirement. Interpretation without observation is speculation. Decision without interpretation is impulse. The layers only work in order. 20 minutes, 3 layers, observations that mean something, interpretations that lead somewhere, and decisions that survive the journey from the review room to the sprint board. At the next sprint review, May changes one thing. After the demo ends, instead of opening the floor to general discussion, she puts a single question on the board. What did you observe? Not what do you think about it? Not what should we do? What did you observe, specifically factually, in the last 20 minutes of demo? 5 minutes. The what band fills. A stakeholder notes that 3 users attempted the same workflow and abandoned it at the same step. A developer observes that the feature took twice as long as estimated but has 0 defects. A product stakeholder notes that 2 questions came up in the demo that were not in the original requirements. Observations, facts, data. Then May moves the group to so what. What do these observations tell us? The abandoned workflow suggests the feature solves a different problem than the one users actually have. The 0 defect story with doubled estimate suggests the team is getting better at quality but needs better sizing tools. The 2 unanswered requirement questions suggest the product owner needs earlier involvement in acceptance criteria, writing. 3 patterns. From 5 minutes of observations, none of which were visible before the sequence was enforced. Now what? 3 decisions. The UX team will conduct 2 user interviews before the next sprint to validate the abandoned workflow hypothesis. Owned by the product owner. Due before sprint planning. The team will introduce a complexity flagging step in refinement for stories over 5 points. Owned by May. Starts next sprint. The product owner will join the last hour of each sprint's refinement session. Owned and agreed publicly before anyone leaves the room. 20 minutes after the demo ended, the review was complete. 3 documented insights, 2 committed actions with owners and dates. 1 stakeholder, who had left the last 4 reviews early, was still in the room, writing. May ran W3 across the next 4 sprint reviews. The average session length dropped from 45 minutes to 26. Not because the demos were shorter, because the debrief was structured rather than drifting. Action completion from review decisions went from near 0, because the decisions were never formally made, to 73% within 4 sprints. The actions existed. They had owners. They had dates. They were therefore completable in a way that casual conversation never produces. Stakeholder engagement shifted noticeably. 2 stakeholders who had previously sent deputies started attending themselves. When May asked one of them why, he said, "The previous format felt like a status update. This feels like a conversation that affects decisions I need to make." He was describing the difference between a demo and a review. W3 is what makes that difference structural rather than accidental. The sprint review's job is not to show what was built. It is to decide what to do next. 3 is the structure that makes that job possible. Before your next sprint review, prepare 3 question cards, 1 per layer. The what card. What did you observe in this sprint? Facts only, no interpretation. The so what card. What patterns or implications emerge from those observations? The now. What card. Given all of that, what specific action are we committing to? Who owns it? And by when? Print them or write them on the board before the demo starts. When the demo ends, do not open the floor, point to the what card and ask the question. Drop 1 observation from your most recent sprint review in the comments. Just the observation, no interpretation yet. I will take the most interesting ones and show the full W3 sequence live in a follow-up video. In episode 8, we meet Raj, a program manager whose product backlog prioritization always ends in politics rather than value. 11 teams, 200 features, and the highest paid person's opinion wins every time. The fix gets 50 people to prioritize a backlog in 30 minutes without a single political argument. I will see you there.